All right, guys, here we go. Another set of new notes. Now, if you are hybrid and you're coming to school on A and B, you are still responsible for taking these notes. You're still responsible for doing the assignment, and it's still all due by Sunday at midnight, okay? No new content is being taught at school. At school, it is just review of content. For those kids that are not coming into school in person, I will make videos for the content that I have to reteach so that you also get that information as well. All right, so we have 3 goals today. We're starting a whole new unit, Unit 3. Your Unit 1 test is next week. Unit 3, we have 3 goals. We have to be able to identify to be able to define the vocabulary for lines and angle relationships, to be able to identify angle relationships created by transversals, and to be able to set up and solve problems using angle relationships. So here we go. Starting with goal number 1, our vocabulary. So parallel lines. These are lines that don't cross or don't touch and are coplanar. Remember, coplanar means they're going to be on the same plane. An example of that would be lines like this. The symbol for parallel, like if you were looking at this and you're like, are those lines parallel? They would have the same number of triangles like this. So because both of those have 1 triangle each, that means they're parallel. The symbol, like if you were to write a sentence, is this. This means parallel, okay? All right, skew. These are lines that don't touch. And not coplanar. They only exist in a 3-dimensional world. So let's say you have a box. Okay, so here's our box. Skew lines would be like this line here that's going left to right. Beep, 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 beep. And this line here that's going up and down. They are never going to touch. They are not on the same plane, so therefore they are skew. There's not a symbol for skew. Perpendicular means they're going to intersect at 90 degrees. So if you have 2 lines that cross and they create that beautiful, beautiful box, that means they are perpendicular. They're creating a 90-degree angle. The symbol for that is an upside down capital T. All right, parallel planes. Planes that do not touch. An example of that would be like the floor and the ceiling. They are 2 planes that are never going to touch unless there's an earthquake or if the building's demolished. But you catch what I'm throwing at you. All right. A few more vocab words and then we'll move on to goal 2. A transversal. This is a line that intersects two or more lines at different points. Okay, so let's say we have 2 lines. And then there's 1 line that goes through both of them. This is the transversal because it's intersecting these 2 lines at 2 different points. Okay? It's very important to be able to identify the transversal because that transversal creates these 4 angle relationships. These are the most important part of this unit. These 4 words right here. Okay, we have our corresponding angles. These are angles in the same spot. Okay, and you're going to be able to identify those with goal 2. This is just defining them right now. Alternate interior angles. These are angles inside the lines and opposite. Okay? Alternate exterior angles. These are angles outside the lines and opposite. And then consecutive interior angles. These are angles inside and same side. All right. Now, let's go ahead and practice taking these 4 vocab words and being able to identify the relationship. That means we are moving on to goal number 2, identifying the relationships. All right, I got to pause this. I need 2 more colors. All right, now, goal number 2, identifying the actual angle relationships. So let's start with corresponding. Okay, remember the definition of corresponding means they're in the same spot. So what I mean by that is if you notice, when our transversal intersects with these 2 lines, it creates like a group of 4. I like to call those my families. So I got a family of 4 going on. And we're talking about ones in the same spot. We mean in the same spot within the family. For instance, angle 1 is in the top left part of this family. Who else is in the top left part? 5. Therefore, they are corresponding. Another way you can think of this is if you took these 2 lines, smashed them together, which angles would be in the same spot? So 2 would match up with 6. 3 would match up with 7. And 4 would match up with 8. Okay? Next, we have our alternate interior angles. All right, so whenever I was talking about being inside or outside the lines, now I mean right here. So because these 2 lines exist, they're creating an interior. This would be our interior because it's between the 2 lines. So our alternate interior means they're going to be in between those 2 lines and opposite of each other. So a lot of people are like, all right, 3 and 5 are opposite. They're not opposite. See how they're on the same side of that line? But 3 and 6 are opposite of each other. And you're like, what about 3 and 4? They're on the opposite ones. Yeah, but they're part of the same family. So they can't have a relationship. But 3 and 6 can. So angles 3 and angle 6. Another one would be angle 4. And across from it, opposite of it, is angle 5. Okay, some of you are like, okay, what about 1 and 2? Well, 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 are outside those 2 lines, so they're not part of the interior grouping. But since we are talking about outside, we're going to be talking now about our alternate exterior angles. Okay, so now we're talking about what's on the outside. So here's an exterior, and here's our exterior. So alternate exterior we said was outside and opposite. So what would be opposite of 1? So we're going to go across to see who's opposite. 8. So angle 1 and angle 8. And then who's opposite of angle 2? 7. Just like that. All right, we've got one more to talk about. And this one is going to be the consecutive interior angles. So we're back on the inside, and consecutive means they're going to be right next to each other. We've already talked about this whenever we were talking about alternate interior. Who is right next to angle 3? Angle 5. And then you're like, but 4 is right next to it too. Again, remember, you cannot have a relationship within the same family. All right, so then we also have angle 4, and who's right next to it? Angle 6. All right, so let's do example 1. Remember, I'm taking problems from your homework for your examples. So example 1 says identify the relationship. So what I like to do is I like to go ahead and just see what I'm working with. Am I working with angles that are inside or outside or both? Well, I notice these are on our interior. Okay, so the next thing I need to realize, are we alternating? Like, are we opposite? Are we on the same side? Are we consecutive? I notice they're opposite of each other, so they are alternate interior. Oh my goodness, I blanked on how to spell the word alternate. Jeez Louise. All right. Now, your homework again is multiple choice, so hopefully that'll help you to be able to complete it. All right. So that's how you do goal number 2. Do we have time? Yes, we do. All right, goal number 3. Now we're going to be talking about these relationships and being able to set up and solve equations with them. So we're either going to be talking about congruent angles or supplementary. Remember, congruent means they're going to be equal. So what are our congruent angles? The long list. Corresponding are congruent. Alternate interior are congruent. And alternate exterior are congruent. So if the problems we're dealing with deal with any of those 3, you're going to take them and set them equal. What does supplementary mean? Well, supplementary means they're going to add to equal 180. So out of the 4 relationships we have, there's only one that is supplementary, and that is consecutive interior. So let's do some examples using goal 3. So the first type of problem you'll have on your homework, you're going to say, find the indicated angle measure. All right, so here's the angle they want to know. And here's the angle we know. Remember, that box means it's 90 degrees. So I need to see what kind of relationship do I have. All right, so we're exterior and we're alternate. Alternate exterior means that they are equal. So our angle measure is 90 degrees. Just like that. All right, now let's look at the next one. For example 2, here's the angle we want to know. Here's the angle that we do know. All right, we're interior. Are we opposite or consecutive? Well, they're right next to each other, so they're consecutive, which means they equal 180. So to find it, I'm going to say 180 minus 127, and that leaves me with 53. And there you go. All right. Now, example 3, we're using the same things we used for example 2, except for having just numbers. We have algebraic expressions. So let's look at example 3, the first one here. Here's the angles that we're working with. So we're interior. Are we opposite or next to each other? We're next to each other. So we know we're going to add to equal 180. So we'd say, okay, 6x plus 14 plus 9x plus 1 equals 180. And then we need to solve this one. So I'm going to pause it. You should pause it too and solve it on your own. And then come back and check your answer on the PDF. All right, let's look at this next one. So we know this one is 80. And this is 6x plus 14. We're outside our 2 lines and opposite, so we're alternate exterior. Those are equal. So we would take this and we go, okay, 6x plus 14 equals 80. Again, try solving that one on your own and then check your answer with the PDF to make sure you're doing the algebra correctly. All right. Make sure you also take a picture of your notes and send it in. Some of you are having difficulty with that. Make sure you type a little bit of something into a Google Doc and then also submit that. I will accept that as well. Thank you guys for all your hard work, and I'll see you next week.